The Cannifornian Podcast is brought to you by the Southern California News Group and Bay Area News Group. Our teams have come together to create the best content focusing on the cannabis and CBD industries and culture. We have developed various channels where we distribute content and offer cannabis and CBD advertising solutions. If you or your business would like to advertise with the Cannifornian, please contact us at info@thecannifornian.com.
Welcome back to the Cannifornian Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin, and today I'm joined by my guest host, Betty Blaze.
Hello, friends.
And my producer, Danielle.
Hey, guys.
And we have a very real episode for you all. Now, there's no doubt that there's a strong cannabis consumer stigma that I'm sure a lot of you have either experienced, seen firsthand, or have just read about in an article. Regardless, not all of us are lazy stoners, and most of us actually benefit from consuming cannabis or hemp products. So today we are talking about how we can break that stigma so that we can all live a life free from cannabis-aimed judgment. Let's get into it. All right, guys, welcome back to the Cannifornian Podcast. It is your host, Kevin, and you might be wondering why I sound a little bit different today. I am recording from isolation because I just got back from vacation in the Dominican Republic. I was out visiting my family. Super grateful I got to spend some time out of the country and go see everybody, and got to do like some tourist things. So I'm just kind of laying low for a little bit, maybe a couple of days or so, just to be safe. I have my vaccines, both doses, but you know, better safe than sorry. I don't want to infect Betty or Danielle.
No, yeah, definitely. But today I'm going to be playing host, right, yes. Kevin?
Woo! Yeah.
So
I like this.
Yeah, Danielle's taking over.
Yeah, so I'm taking over. We've never done this before, but we figured today's episode is all about breaking the cannabis stigma. And Kevin and Betty both work in the cannabis industry and are open about consumption. So I figured it would be great for me to take over.
Absolutely.
Let's just get into it. So
let's jump into it.
Yeah, so all right, so today, and excuse me, everybody listening, because I've never hosted. This is new to me.
You're doing great.
And I'm hosting for our hosts, but our hosts are our guests today because they're the stars. So we're talking a little bit about the cannabis stigma, trying to break it. And I wanted to kind of just get some feedback from Kevin and also Betty after. I want to know a little bit about your guys' background and how you guys got started in the industry.
Absolutely. Who's that question to first?
Let's go with Kevin first.
Okay.
All right. Well, it all started when I was a wee lad at the age of 18. I had recently graduated from high school. I had quit my lifeguarding job at a local water park that anybody who is in the Southern California area, I'm sure you know about it. It's a pretty well-known one, but it no longer exists. It's the Wild Rivers. It's a great place. And I was looking for work, and I reached out to a buddy, and I knew that he had started embarking on like some cannabis ventures with some family members. Him and his uncle had started a grow operation, and I was just curious, you know, like I'd always been interested in cannabis. I mean, maybe a little bit earlier than I should have been, but you know, at the time it was 18 plus was allowed for medical use. It still wasn't, you know, adult recreational use at the time. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, and he said, yeah, we could use some people to trim. So I started trimming at this grow operation, and I was like instantly fascinated by the whole thing. I don't know if anybody's experienced trimming. I don't know, Betty, if you've trimmed, or Danielle. It's like a super tedious thing to do. You spend hours just like clipping away at buds. You start going blind. Your nose gets all congested with pollen and all these things. But I kind of loved it, honestly. And I loved being around the plant, and I loved interacting with the dude growing the plant, which is like, I don't know, he's just like this mystical being to me that like he grew this amazing weed that like altered my consciousness and my way of feeling. It was so interesting, you know?
Yes.
And I spent a good amount of time doing that. I started like picking up a little bit more responsibilities there. He entrusted me to do just a little bit more than just the trimming. But as time went on, it became pretty evident to my parents that I was no longer working at Wild Rivers and that I was up to something else, because I would come home smelling like, so there's a pretty distinct difference between leaving breathing a grow smell versus smoking weed smell. It's like it smelled like I was bathing in pot, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And my parents, like, they sat me aside, you know what I mean, like the classic parent talk. They're like, Kevin, what is going on? Like, you cannot deny to me that you are doing something with weed. He's like, you reek of weed. I'm like, okay, like, shit, yeah, you know, busted. Like, there was no way I was gonna hide it. So I told him, I was like, yeah, you know, I've been working at this grow, and my buddy's uncle and him own it, and I've been helping him out, blah blah blah. And you know, they weren't really excited about it, honestly. My mom especially. I mean, and she's, you know, I don't want to make it seem like I'm hating on my mom either, because my mom supports the hell out of me and, like, she loves me, but she was not about it. She was just concerned for my well-being. She's concerned about me, and she's afraid that, like, I'm going to get into trouble, whatever, which I totally understand. So that kind of, like, forced my exit out of the cannabis industry for a bit.
Mm.
And yeah, that's honestly how I got into it. I mean, later on, I ended up, you know, speaking to the same buddy, ended up opening dispensaries. And he asked me if I would like to manage one of his dispensaries, because he knew that I had, like, some retail experience, and he knew I was, like, an outgoing guy, whatever. He's like, oh, dude, you'd be great. You actually know about weed, whatever. And so I started doing that. And I was managing a Prop 215 dispensary, which for those of you who do not know what Prop 215 is that was the Caregivers Act in California. So basically, people served as caregivers, and other people were patients, and it was all donation based. And I was running that. I was running the show over there, making sure everything was going smoothly, and did that for a good amount of time. Maybe, I don't know, almost a year, which is actually a pretty long time, because if anybody who has worked in a unlicensed dispensary knows, is that any day can be your last day, because the regulations, whatever, everything was very gray. There was no black and white. We were, like, kind of allowed to be there, and yeah, we got the boot from the city, and that was like my second forced exit from the cannabis industry, and kind of went into limbo for a little bit. And then my same buddy again, man, he really trusted me. So he was part of a group that opened up one of the first licensed dispensaries in Orange County, where it was kind of like the precursor to Prop 64. It was something called Measure B in the city of Santa Ana, and all these Measure B dispensaries were to become some of the first players in the Prop 64 game. So he hit me up, asked me if I wanted to work there, you know, pull in a real paycheck, have it be legitimate, not have to stress out about, you know, people knocking on the door, getting shut down, and, you know, just like some stability. And I was like, dude, I'm into that. You know, we kind of took a little bit of a pay cut. We started, but it was all worth it for the security, and kind of watched this whole thing evolve, and it was pretty cool. And you know, throughout that, I dabbled in a little bit of cultivation, and now I'm working at the distribution level. So that's kind of like my start to where I am in a nutshell in the cannabis industry.
Nice. No, I think that is a good little background to what we're kind of getting into, because you kind of covered, like, your parents, and we definitely, like, want to get into that. That's something that's totally worth covering.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that you were pulled in and out 3 times in the cannabis industry, but you kept finding your way back to it. That's pretty cool.
It just kept finding me, man. I don't know. It's like, it's hard to. Yeah. I don't know. There's something about it, and and cannabis to me has always truly been fascinating. I'm a little bit of a nerd, and whenever I, like, get into something, I take the deep dive, and I started really nerding about cannabis, and, you know, I got super into the different strains and
totally
the different types of effects, and I loved it, you know. So I kept making my way back, kept finding me. But I mean, enough about me. Betty, how did you get started? I know you have a little bit more of a conventional background, and cannabis is a little bit newer to you, but I'm interested to know, like, how did you get started?
Yeah, Kevin, you definitely have more experience than I do, but I'm still growing, and I'm kind of a nerd like you. I love learning. I bartended before this, and so I kind of switched alcohol for cannabis, and I'm still geek out like I would like with cocktails and recipes, and I love learning about the cannabinoids and the terpenes that go into, you know, every strain. So fascinating. But no, I didn't start smoking until later on in my life. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. For anybody who doesn't know, it's like Oregon and Washington. They have great weed out there. I was even over there when they opened up their first legal dispensary in Washington. So that was really cool. Again, I didn't smoke, but I still like remember being like, wow, this is like a really significant moment in history. It's really cool. I even was like, I want to open a baked goods store one day. I didn't even smoke, but I was like, this is going to be something, you know? So it's funny that like, you know, even back then, like I was even thinking about cannabis. So that's pretty cool. And then I ended up moving to Hawaii for a few years. I went to school there. You know, cannabis wasn't legalized there, but, you know, I still found my ways. And I feel like I really fell in love with it there, you know, just being on the island, smoking in the sun, floating in the water. Oh, I've never felt bliss like that before. It was magical.
Oh, man.
Take me there.
That sounds great.
It was great. I don't know why I left. No, I'm just kidding. No, I came over to San Diego. I know it's been a struggle with that one. I came over in San Diego October of 2019. Pre-pandemic, you know, I was like, I want one of those big girl jobs out here. You know, I went to school for marketing and I was like, this is great. But then, you know, shortly after, you know, pandemic hit and I was like, damn, why did I move here? Like, what the heck? So I was just at home, you know, smoking a bunch. And I was like, wow, California is a huge cannabis market. And I love like, you know, marketing and I love graphic work. And originally I wanted to market for some of the restaurants and hotels in San Diego, but I was like, nah, like, why don't I just cannabis? And why don't I work for myself right now? I was like, you know, I kind of feel like with this period right now with COVID, we were kind of given, for some of us, this extra time to play with. And I thought I'm going to take advantage of it. And so I've just started putting myself right into the cannabis industry here in California. I've got to network a ton. I was fortunate to come across the Cannifornian through all of this. So yeah, I kind of started in California. I started originally going on to the Weed Tube, you know, which was our last episode. We had Ariana on talking about the Weed Tube, like YouTube, but, you know, just for cannabis. And I loved it. You know, that was my first time. I was like, wow, this is a real community here. Like there's a lot going on. And, you know, a lot of people aren't hiding their identity to cannabis, which I thought was really neat. And slowly that transpired into Instagram and other social media platforms, and it just took off, and I love it. You know, like I've really found my niche and my community, and I've never been like, wow, I know what I want to do in my life, and it's cannabis. Like this is what I like am so passionate about doing.
Yeah, and that's how you and I connected through Instagram, which is really crazy.
Yeah. Our producer, Danielle, she just messaged me out of the blue one day and was like, hey, I love your personality and your vibe. We're starting this podcast. I think you could be great for it. Like, what do you think? And I had already wanted to do a cannabis podcast. So that to me was just the universe telling me I was going in the right direction.
The stars aligning.
Exactly.
The stars have aligned and we are here now.
And here we are on
and
your
we're trying
couch,
to break this freaking stigma that everybody... that everybody's freaking applying to anybody who consumes cannabis, works in the industry.
Exactly.
Like, I feel like what are some things that like are right off the bat, just like some stigmas that anybody kind of like can experience just from consuming cannabis?
I feel like the first one I hear, lazy. Exactly. That was the first one that came to my head. Lazy. You know, they don't have like a good work ethic. They can't exercise, like marijuana. You know, if you smoke weed, you can't exercise, which is, we've learned, is completely a myth.
Yep. Forgetful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, what else? Kids forever. I think that's a big one. A lot of people have this idea that if you smoke weed into your adulthood, that you're not like developed into an adult, and that you are somehow lesser of an adult because you haven't been able to break through that phase in your life. Which, I mean, it's not necessarily a phase. Like it really is for many, if not most. Like it is therapeutic, and I think that's a big one too. Just like the forever child is kind of one of the big ones, which I guess kind of goes along with like laziness, etc. But that's one that I've experienced, especially like, when are you gonna like move past this? You can't be a kid forever. You gotta like eventually grow up and let it go. What if I do? Like, I handle my shit. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
No, yeah, we know teachers. We know like people who work normal jobs who consume just because like that's what they like to that's what they do to take off the stress, take off the edge. Like
anxiety
from
to
work.
help keep focused.
Yeah. I think that like the biggest stigma that sticks with me, just because this is what I always heard, was it's the gateway drug.
Oh,
Like this is what is gonna take you into the unknown world, and I just don't think that's true. Like, do you guys think that is the gate? I mean, I'm sure people have their reasons, but I don't think that it's necessarily what's gonna get you to that next place.
No, and I hate it even being referred to as like a drug, like in such a negative connotation.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the term drug. I mean, it certainly is a drug, right? I mean, coffee's a drug. It alters your state.
Yeah.
There's like a physiological response to what you're ingesting. Like there's no doubt, but it's the way that people, like you said, it's that negative connotation. It's the way people perceive the term drug. Because I mean, dude, we take drugs every day. Like it's not, but whether or not we abuse them is up to you. And people are responsible. And I feel like, if anything, cannabis has served to be an exit drug. A ton of people are using cannabis to switch away from things that are a little bit more damaging to them, like consuming alcohol.
True,
I know a lot of people are using it to reduce opiate usage. I know people that are taking all sorts of crazy medications for, neurological type of disorders that are just, crippling them. And cannabis seems to solve their problem as well, or if not better. So I think people, as more education comes, people are going to come to realize that that's just not the case. It's just not true. Certainly, I mean, of course, what do they say? The broken clock is today. And I'm sure some people maybe take it too far, or it does lead them down other paths, but I don't know if you could blame that on the cannabis. There's just so many other factors involved.
Exactly. And that's what we really need to bring to light, is just, how this has just gone so far.
Yeah, I think that also when you think about like, okay, everybody who's kind of had a stigma, at least for me, it's all of like the older generations. And I think that when you think back, like just put yourself in their shoes and think back like to how weed was back then and how they got it. Like, you're not buying it from a guy in the corner and it's sketchy anymore.
Exactly.
Like you're going to a dispensary where it's been tested, it's safe, it's not laced with anything, as long as it's an illegal dispensary. Like it's all pretty safe. Like it's all, you can buy it regularly. It doesn't have to be so like scary anymore.
I know. And I think
it's not seedy. It's no longer seedy.
Yeah. Exactly. It's not taboo.
It's not taboo for us, but when you put it in the perspective of like your parents,
exactly,
then they're kind of like, well, this was the gateway drug. Like back in my day, this wasn't safe, and you were buying it from a sketchy person.
Right there, that was my big thing in the beginning. Is I had that fear, of being judged by my parents or my friends because of what they thought.
Yeah, and you're so open on social media
now
about consuming. Like you have thousands of followers who know that you consume cannabis. Like what kind of stigmas have you seen come from you working in social media?
Oh, I mean, when I first entered the world, I had another Instagram, my own personal Instagram, and I really was like, oh, do I just keep going with the personal Instagram I have, and I do Betty Blazed on there, or do I just start from scratch? At that time, and I was still like, my family members were on my social media pages, and so I did feel a little uncomfortable with that. I just hadn't told them yet that I was going into this industry. So I just made a whole new Instagram page, and it did really well. But I did notice that a lot of my followers or my friends who were on my original page, about maybe like 10% of them transferred over, which I thought was very unique. And it was hard for me to come to grips with for a long time. I was like, am I losing friends from being in this industry? But then, when I took a step back, I was understanding that, they don't know this version of me. This is a new version of me, and I'm really happy doing this. And, maybe in time we'll like get on this board too, but that is okay. I'm confident with knowing that, because I know I am doing something that is benefiting not only me, but so many other people. And like you said, I want to put it on my page. I want to be proud. I want to be proud with, cannabis, cannabinoids, mental health, because I want people to know that like this is a safe space, no judgment. That's why I really feel like I built a community through Instagram.
That's cool. That's cool. I feel like a lot of people use social media for the wrong reasons, and it seems like you really have used it to unite rather than
Oh yeah.
bringing it down.
I mean, I even used to use it the wrong way. It's completely different than when I had Instagram originally.
Totally. That's pretty cool. Has anybody ever come out, like, right out and told you, like, hey, like, I disagree with what you're doing? Has anybody ever, like, you know, forced the hand a little bit?
Yeah, honestly, no, they haven't been. I've only had a very loving experience with Instagram so far, but I know that can be different for everybody. But I really do try to gauge my account in a way that I just don't feel like any hate could be brought up, unless they really had some vendetta against me.
But I mean, okay, take this.
Yeah.
Look at it this way.
Give it to me.
Don't you feel like you've already kind of been a victim to the stigma because Instagram has shadow banned you? They've had to pause your account. Like, don't you kind of consider that as like a victim of the stigma?
I suppose so. Yeah. I mean, Instagram itself has victimized me, I suppose. If I'm on there engaging too much, or if people are engaging with my page and I'm doing well, I'll get shadow banned for a week and I can't post content for a week. And it really gets to me personally and emotionally, because I start thinking about the algorithm and how I can't like message my friends on there back in the community that does rely on me daily.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. I really do appreciate everybody who's on there because they are so encouraging. And I know that my page does mean a lot to them. So it is heartbreaking when I can't be on. But Instagram luckily has been one of the easiest platforms for me to use, other than like TikTok, where my whole account's been removed. I've got it back. They still take down my videos, even though I'm not showing any marijuana or using any cannabis terms. So hopefully soon we'll see some change with that, because that's a great platform to network on. You just get so many views so quickly.
Have you noticed that brands have kind of maybe not stepped away, but do you find it that brands are a little hesitant to work with you because of the content that you post?
No.
Yeah, has it affected your business at all?
I mean, I personally wouldn't say so, because my business is cannabis. So why would I want to like work with anyone who's not in that same fight to break the stigma that I am, right?
Sure.
I mean, I definitely feel like I film and edit my videos very well in a really respectful way, that they get the message across clearly, and not being like so like much. I don't know what the right word is for that. Does it make sense?
No, yeah,
I feel like I've got actually more people wanting to work with me because they're like, wow, this is really cool. And anybody, I feel like, I mean, you guys probably know, anybody who is in cannabis and is all about fighting the cause loves to talk about cannabis. They want to be with those people because it is such a strong community.
Yeah, you want to kind of follow those people who feel the same way about you, have the same views.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny kind of tying it back to the whole family thing, because I do want to get into this. I think it's cool. Kevin, I know that your family was very against, you working in the cannabis industry. I'd like you and Betty to kind of talk about just like the experience that you guys have had with your family and the stigma that you've gotten from them.
Definitely. You can go first, Kevin.
Sure. Yeah, so my parents are immigrants from Latin America. And in Latin America, marijuana is a drug, and drugs are bad. It's like A plus B equals C to them. It's for them it's pretty night and day, and they had a hard time wrapping it around or like thinking about the concept for a while and understanding that this is legitimate and there's a future in it. Even just this last vacation, I went, like I said, I was in the Dominican Republic visiting my family, and some of them asked me, they legitimately asked me, they're like, hey, like, what do you think? Like, do you really see a future in this? Like, what do you plan for the long term? Like, you can't do this forever, right? And it's like, no, like, I really do believe in this. And I think what started to change their mind is once they finally got to come in and see like a big, beautiful building with cannabis displayed in a way that is respectful. Maybe not respectful is the right word, but
like glamorized,
professionally. Professionally. And see that it really is something. My dad opened up to it a little bit more quickly. He has a medical background, and he's people in medicine generally are researchers. They're always learning. And so he's been, looking into different applications and seeing what's going on in different places with the research and how this is going to open up all sort of pharmaceutical potential and all sort of therapeutic type of things. But yeah, it took some time. It took some time. My mom is still kind of like here and there about it. She's starting to understand it and she's getting it now. But it is what it is. Like they're traditional. And you got to think, like, in Latin America, people get violent over this stuff. Like you think about the war on drugs, and they think about, you know, what's going on in places like Mexico or what's happened in Colombia, and, you know, they see the news and it's scary and they're like, man, this is caused by drugs. And like, to them, they're equating marijuana as drugs and drugs cause this violence. And, you know, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that that's the picture that gets painted to them, and the media displays it in such a way. But that's why we're here, you know, so we can have these conversations and really open up the discussion. And they're really starting to understand that this is a positive thing. Certainly not for everybody, just as anything is.
Yeah.
But definitely net good. But the family thing, my grandma still asks me about it. She's a little bit weird on it, but it's just like you can't change people's minds. It's a generational thing, and the more we can educate the public, the better it will be.
It's very true. You know, it's funny you say like they had to really witness it and go in there and see the beautiful displays of marijuana. But I really feel like that's true with cannabis. You know, like I feel a lot of people have to see to believe in this industry. I found out.
100%. Yeah, and the seeing is believing part is a big one. There was like a pretty big video that went viral a while ago. It was a guy who had Parkinson's. I don't know if you guys have seen it. But he had aggressive Parkinson's, and he was shaking super heavily. And this is one of the first videos that my dad saw that kind of like really sparked his interest. And he took a couple hits off the joint, and it was like an instant relief. The man became a new person. He literally became a new person before these people's eyes instantly. He was able to talk. This was a man who couldn't sit still. He was sitting still. He like held his hand out and it wasn't shaking, and he was able to hold a coherent conversation, which wouldn't have been possible without it. And it was instant relief. It was unbelievable. And how you can deny that is, you know, beside me. I don't understand. Like if you see something like that, you have to understand that there really is a benefit to this, and we need to learn more. How can we apply this? The side effects are minimal.
Right.
We need to know more.
Absolutely. And your dad, with his medical background, like I'm sure like it made clear sense to him. Like, okay, this had an effect on this guy. Like, makes sense.
Totally. It completely altered his physiological, like his physiology was completely different. Like you just saw it. It was undeniable.
Wow. I was actually just talking to somebody who was hit by a car and then in a coma for a week, and they were saying that he was using marijuana to medicate, and they improved instantly. Like, and even the doctors were like, "This is a miracle." Like, wow, what? And
we've heard those stories. I mean, we heard it with previous guests. Like, we've heard it everywhere. Yeah. I mean, there used to be a show on Vice, and they kind of were like dove into like drugs and into cannabis and how it affected and how it helped. And there was literally women who lived on the other side of the country whose CBD was helping their kids with their epilepsy, like seizures, everything. And it was still illegal. Yeah. So they had to like risk breaking like a federal law to come and get CBD and try to smuggle it into their other states. Like, it's working. This thing is helping people.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
And like, I mean, I think that's why it's so important for us to break this stigma and to kind of be like, look, like, it's not a bad thing. Like, yes, everything has a good and a bad side. Just like alcohol, like you get too drunk, you're hungover, you're gross, you're sloppy, you get too high, you go to sleep. Like, you know, it's just, there's a good and a bad, and
tolerance.
Yeah. Knowing your tolerance. And I feel like as we expose that's what's going to help like break it.
Absolutely.
Betty, tell me a little bit about your grandma, because I love your grandma and I think that the world needs to know this story.
All right. A little bit about my grandmother. She is the OG Betty. I didn't mean to model my account after her, but I kind of did. So I kind of like to honor her in a way with it. She's Grandma Betty, but I was really nervous to tell her because, you know, when I came out to my parents about that I was working in the cannabis industry, my mom smokes, so she was very supportive. And my dad, I feel like, took a little bit to warm up, but not too long. And then when I finally came out and told the whole family about it, I really felt like a whole, like, you know, relief was off my chest. And so then I was like, okay, now I just have Betty. I got grandma left, you know. I was like, I've got to tell her. There's no way I can have my Betty Blaze and not tell the OG Betty. So, and my dad was like, my dad was like, just tell her you work in pharmaceuticals. Like, that's not too bad. And I was like, no, but I feel like I still want to be, you know, honest with that in myself. So, and my grandma loves hemp. So I was like, how hard can this be? But she was so understanding. She loved it. I hope she like kind of grasps exactly what I do here. And I will show her this podcast afterwards too. But she loved it. And she even asked my family, she's like, oh, Emily, why don't you talk about your podcast to everyone? And that just meant so much to me to know that, you know, she stands behind me and supports me in this journey. And she loves the fact that I'm like educating people too. She's seeing me as like a teacher in a way, which I think was a lot of pressure in a way, but I liked it, you know, because I do have a lot of wisdom. We all do to share about this.
No, yeah. And you post a lot about terpenes and you get really like nerdy with it. Yeah. But I think I want to comment on something that you said. So Emily.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay.
Nobody knows this, but Betty Blaze's real name is Emily. I didn't know this. I don't think me and Kevin, did you know this when we first met her?
Oh my gosh, I wasn't until I was auditioning.
I thought her first name was Betty and last name was Blaze.
Yeah, same. I thought that was on your birth certificate.
I freaking wish. I was born at 4:20 a.m. though, so it was all meant to be. Yeah, but no, yeah. So Emily, Betty, you know, it's so interesting. Everybody knows me as Betty, and that was not supposed to be my name. That was supposed to be like a beach Betty, like a babe, you know, Betty Blaze.
Yeah.
But now I'm so comfortable with Betty. I even feel like I have this own like little personal persona I go into when I'm like in character with her. Like it's pretty fun.
That's funny. So you're Grandma Betty, and that's funny. I have a grandma named Betty as well.
That is so funny.
We have so much in common.
So
cool. Much.
Grandma Betty is a pretty open-minded lady. I feel like it's hard for people from that generation to really grasp it. That's cool, man.
She is. She's a pretty amazing woman.
Love that. Yeah, it's not everybody feels the same way. I was gonna like not mention this, but I feel like since we're on the topic, I recently was in a relationship, like a pretty serious long one, and it ended. And one of the big deal breakers was me working in the cannabis industry, actually. And this was a pretty, like I said, it was a serious relationship. Like I still care about this person dearly, you know.
Right.
And it was painful. It was painful that they couldn't understand that this is more than just selling weed, and that there really is a net benefit to this, and there truly is a future in this. You know, they wanted me to go into like a more, like a standard 9-to-5 career to do whatever it may be, anything but cannabis, and it killed me, you know. And this is somebody who's our peer, you know, in our age group, and it's still held this stigma. And you know, I've even consumed cannabis with this person, but just I think there was something about the idea of telling people that your partner is in the cannabis industry is too much. And then, I mean, I think she was aware that there's a huge stigma on it, and that her family and her family friends were going to feel a certain way about it, and that they were going to judge our relationship because of it. And it made me sad. Honestly, it made me sad.
Yeah, I can imagine. That was
it made me really sad. It was painful. It's something that I've dedicated so much of my life to. You know, like I've been, you know, like I mentioned, I started when I was 18. I've been at this for like a decade now.
Yeah.
I can't just
You've been invested.
just to step away from something. What's that? Yeah, I'm in. You know, I'm all in. So to have somebody, you know, kind of not push me aside. And of course, there's other, you know. That's one of the
other
reasons.
Factors,
there was other factors, of course, but that was a big factor, and that was a big part of the conversation. And it's painful, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that has experienced, you know, relationship setbacks, friendships, whatever, because of it.
No, definitely. I think also when it's something that has to do with family, like, family is so important to everybody. You can't tell somebody to break away from their family. So I think when it kind of gets into that cloudy area, like, somebody's gonna get hurt, and it sucks that it was you, Kevin, but like, you're an amazing person.
I know. We
don't have to dwell on that, but that is a really good example of how the stigma got to you and how it really, like, we're still human. People, exactly. You guys are still humans.
I was dating a guy for a little bit last year, and he goes, what are we going to tell my parents you do for a living? I work in cannabis. What do you mean what do you mean? What are we going to tell them? And it's because that was fearful for him, like, just as well.
So strange, because I mean, you drink in front of your infant, all right? Like, you can drink a bottle of wine in a night and maybe get a little loose, and that's not a big deal, even though, you know, you're leaving an impression on them, like, okay, this is an all right thing to do, when in reality, that is truly a detriment. And anybody who picks up a drinking habit is in a real problem. You're looking at real problems. You're looking at liberties, collapse of mental health. You lose all of your friends. Like, I feel like people have lost their family members and relationships to marijuana more so because of the stigma that is held, and less because of the actual damage and what happens to people mentally when they're on the drug. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me, and how we even have to have this conversation. But it's important. It's important that we do, because people really need to become aware of it.
Yeah, and this is all about breaking it. Like, I know that this podcast is only going to do so much, and maybe it's just going to affect the people who are listening to it. But that, even with that, like, that might strike a conversation with somebody that they know who doesn't agree with it.
Exactly.
And that might just change somebody's perspective just a little bit. And I think that's like where the start is.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know if this is like, we can use this, but I mean, even you, like, you inspired me, and I feel like I inspired you to be able to feel a little bit more comfortable to be able to post on your social media platform.
Definitely. No, definitely. Before this podcast and being like completely open with cannabis and stuff, I definitely like didn't follow any accounts that had anything to do with cannabis. I didn't really like any posts that had anything to do with cannabis, just because I was afraid of what people would think. I was afraid to see, like, if my parents saw that I liked something, which I know that they would only know if they saw that post and they were following that post and they saw that I liked it. But I mean, following you and getting involved with this podcast and just talking about it and caring for the industry a little bit more kind of made me feel like, well, I'm 21. I'm over 21, not 21. I wish I was still 21. I'm over 21. And I mean, it's my life. If I want to like a post, if I want to like a funny post that Betty posted about a freaking Starburst bong, then I should be able to do it without feeling judged. And if somebody wants to come and, you know, bring it up to me, I can tell them exactly how I feel.
Absolutely. And I like, when you told me that, I was really touched, because like, at least if I'm influencing one person in that way, then like, I'm so happy. Like, I think I started crying when Danielle told me that. Like, it just means I'm making a difference. We're making a difference.
100%. And it trickles down too. Like, you tell the one person, and, you know, they trust and respect you, Danielle, and they're like, you know what, Danielle feels that way. Maybe I should think about it a little bit more. And then they look into it and like, you know what, this isn't bad. And then they spread to somebody else, and it's like the domino effect. And I think we just got to keep doing it.
No, yeah, definitely. I agree. Do you guys still, like, I mean, since we're on this topic, do you guys still kind of feel like you have to hide it from people?
That's funny. I was thinking the other day, I didn't introduce my profession to my roommate's mother, and I don't know why I did that. Because even we were talking about cannabis later, but my first instinct was to not tell her my profession. Just say, I'm a freelancer. And I don't know why that was my go-to, but it shouldn't be. So I'm slowly, you know, trying to transition myself out of that.
I feel like it's hard to break it. I feel less than before, but certainly, I mean, I don't know. And I don't like people to know my business anyways.
Yeah.
So you know, like, if you ever look at my social media page, it's less than active. Like, I just don't care to like share my life in general.
That's okay.
Especially something like that. So, especially something like about consuming cannabis, just because, I don't know, I feel like I don't want to give people a reason to judge me before getting to know me if I don't have to. And I think it almost serves as a benefit to kind of keep it low key and not let people know. At least, I don't know. This is my personal experience.
No, yeah.
And then kind of and then introduce it later on. Like, hey, like, I do smoke cannabis.
Yeah.
I am a cannabis user. I work in the cannabis industry. And then people are like, oh shit, like really? Like you Kev? I'm like, yeah, man. Like often it's like, oh dude, you see me like you got it pretty together. And it's like, nobody really has it all together. You know, maybe it's the weed. It's keeping me cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I don't like to share it in general. So I definitely feel that. Not so much, but that's just kind of like how I am as a person in general, I think.
No, that's a good point. I think that it's definitely a good point because, yeah, I mean, just to your point too, Betty, like you didn't introduce yourself, didn't tell her what you did. But I think that's kind of like what's in the back of our minds regardless when we're talking to somebody. I mean, like I don't necessarily work in the profession, so I don't feel that pressure to hide it as much, but it totally makes sense when I think about you too.
Yeah, and also I don't want to straight up, I mean, like I'm still trying to like figure out coin my name. Like I freelance for, I do marketing, I do this podcast. Some people call me a weed influencer. That is probably what I am. I know that it just sounds so weird to come out of my mouth. So I usually, I start with freelance, and then if, people are interested in cannabis, then I'll start talking about that a little bit. And then I think like for me, I'm at that point now where I am like loud and proud to be a cannabis smoker, and that's why for me, I think my angle here is just, showing everybody that is completely okay. Like, I feel like I'm a functioning adult. I feel like and not on top of that, I feel like I just really found my community with this, never before have I met and felt so like comfortable and connected with people from like all around the world who also smoke cannabis and have similar beliefs and thoughts. And it's just been such a great experience and journey. This year has been so different than any of them before, starting this page and, meeting everyone and you guys.
Yeah, that's cool. That is cool. That's interesting how you found it via Instagram, and it really isn't unbelievable. Like when I look at the WeedTube or, like your social media page, and the level of legitimate interaction is amazing. Like you look at some other influencers or, people who have a lot of following, whatever, and you read their comments and it's like a bunch of bots or spam or somebody advertising their fire
send us
mixtape.
a DM to work with us.
Whatever. We're looking for models for whatever,
exactly.
And I look at your interaction, I'm like, dude, these people like legit know Betty. They actually give a shit about Betty, and they're actually interacting with you. It's not like a shit post comment that doesn't mean anything. Like it's legitimate.
Exactly. That's why, I was sick here the past few weeks, and it really took a toll on my mental health, and I just had to get off the gram for a minute. I was experiencing a little bit of Instagram anxiety. This is all new to me. I had burnout, had a flu, and I just had to be off of it. And I felt so much guilt because I care about all these people. They care about me. They were like, where are you? Like, are you okay? So like, it means a lot. So the fact that I can't be on there, like I got so sad. But, when I reintroduced myself and I came back on, they were all so loving and supportive, and I just really felt like all these people had my back on Instagram, and it was so nice.
Betty posted the best comeback video. Everybody has to go to her page and look at it. I think it was by far my favorite video I've ever seen, but
thank you. It focuses in a lot about mental health and, just the struggles going on with social media and what you can experience and the burnout feeling and, just trying to be connected. Because I've talked to so many people on our Instagram who really connected and related to that post that I was like, just thank you so much for posting that. I really appreciate it. You're not alone. I got that a lot.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
People care about you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, people care about you. And that just goes to show how real our community is. Like these people actually, I feel like I'm beating the dead horse. Like they really give a shit. They really care about you.
I feel like I do that every day. No, because they do.
Kevin, I want to know. I want to know a little bit, because Betty has her community through social media, but you kind of have a different community. You have a community where you have people who show up day to day, work, make a living, go home to their families and live their everyday lives. You kind of have this different kind of community where people are like, this is my livelihood as well, in a different way. And it's kind of just different. They don't have it's not like they have followers to just kind of comment and talk with, but they have coworkers.
Yeah, no doubt. Maybe less so now in at the level that I'm at now in the distribution level, but definitely when I was working in the dispensary, we were all in it together, and we came from the traditional gray market together, and we all had experiences there. And you know, you need people. It was such an alternative industry at the time. You know, your friends would maybe end up in jail one day because they got raided, and the police take all of their product, and they have to go and sit in a jailhouse for a day because they weren't supposed to be there. And that's it was a small community, and it was one that was like very self-supportive, and there's definitely a bonding experience that you have with people that, you know, you can share about like some trying times. Nothing like a good struggle to like bring people together. And definitely like some of my best friends for life are going to be people that I've met in the cannabis industry. Some of the best people I've met have been in the cannabis industry, and
some of the smartest.
Because
they very smart people.
You know, to be in that industry, it takes a lot because it's constantly stopping and going, and you're getting all these road bumps along the way. So you have stories, you have those experiences, you have those learning experiences.
Absolutely, and it's invaluable. I will never forget any of these people that I met or the experiences that I've had through the cannabis industry. It's awesome, man. It's awesome, and it's cool to be able to, like I said, it's cool to be able to really bond with people on a different type of level that you end up bonding on. And like I said, I'm going to be connected to these people for life.
Exactly.
It's a really cool community, and we all support each other. I mean, of course, just like it's also a competitive industry, and you know, business. And just like in anything, there's going to be bad apples here and there, but I would say overall it's really cool. And you know, all these people, we talk about the stigma about lazy stoners. I would tell you that the people that work in the cannabis industry are the exact opposite of lazy. If you had any idea the output that needs to be generated to keep this shit moving, you would quickly get that out of your mind, because we work hard, and we give a shit. We're very conscientious about our work, and we want it to be done well. I mean, maybe not everybody, but I can speak about my cohort specifically. But we care, and it's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's nonstop.
I think that's such a good point. This is going to kind of take me to my next topic, or my next talking point. Like, yes, I totally agree with that. Like, I just know from working with you, Kevin, on the podcast, like, you're on phone calls all the time. Like, you got to go meet somebody up. Like, you're so busy. You're one of the busiest people I know. And I think that that's kind of like, I want to kind of do this thing where I kind of like go through your guys' day to day. Because I think it's important for people to know that, like, just because you work in the cannabis industry, just because you consume cannabis, doesn't mean that, I mean, like, some of the things that you're doing isn't the same as what the average Joe is doing.
Exactly.
So, Kevin, like, I guess we'll start with you. Kind of give us, like, a day-to-day of, like, I guess just kind of like your routine. Like, you work, do you wake up, do you smoke, do you wait until, like, you know, you're off of work? Like, what's kind of your routine with cannabis while also keeping you a functioning adult?
Sure. So I generally wake up sometime around 6:30 in the morning. I drink a lot of black espresso, and then I wash that down with about 1,000 milligrams of CBD tincture, just to kind of like cut the edge off a little bit. That sounds so seedy, but honestly, it just kind of like brings me down a little bit.
No, yeah, I get it.
And yeah. And, you know, body sore. I either try to go do some yoga, or if not, just, you know, chill out in the morning, and then phone calls start pouring in. And, you know, a usual day will be like around 9, I'll have somebody come in and deliver an order, and I'll have to make sure that the quality control on that is correct. You know, manage the inventory, make sure that that's getting done correctly. And then just sales meetings, meeting with brands, fulfilling orders there, doing bulk meetings. This really is like a never sleeps industry. It's I don't know. It feels like the weed stock exchange. Like, people are always buying and selling, and it's a constant phone call, always emails.
Yeah, you're actually like a businessman. Like, I think all of us can agree. Like, you're like a businessman, always on the phone, in and out. You're busy.
I'm busy,
you are
yeah,
busy.
in meetings. It's really what it is. It's that's the best way to describe it. That's the best way to describe it. Then at the end of the day, when I get a moment, once the phone calls have settled down, usually I'm doing like data entry for the day, like logging sales, and then plotting on the logistics for the next day, like what's happening tomorrow, and making sure that everything is going to be smooth for the next day. It really is nonstop. Like, I mean, shoot, like think about the conversation we had with Jason. Like he had to step out from a massive facility that had like 10,000 units of biomass. I can only imagine what kind of day he had.
Yeah, seriously.
And that's about it. It's really just constant movement. I don't know how else to say it, but constant phone calls, emails, meetings. It's business. Yeah. It's business. It's a fast business.
So then when work is done, when you get off your final call and you're ready to just kind of relax, is that when you kind of bring in the THC? That's
when I'll bring in THC. I use CBD during the day. THC makes it a little bit more difficult for me to keep my thoughts in order. And I mean, there certainly is a short-term side effect of short-term memory and things like that, which I mean, it isn't the biggest deal depending on what you do. But for me, like I can't do that. I can't deal with it. It makes it a little bit more difficult for me to function. But at the end of the day, that's definitely my relief. Like I don't drink really. Maybe I'll have like wine with my family at dinner or whatever, but I'm not a drinker. So that's definitely like my deep breath at the end of the day is I smoke a little weed and like I relax. I like turn on some music and then I can, exist as myself.
Totally.
Nice. That sounds like a busy day and not one that I want to ever do. But that's just one example of how somebody is working so freaking hard. It's funny that he's even using CBD during the day. Like, that's what I do. Yeah. I have to take CBD in the morning so that I can get through my day and then cut to the end of the day when I know that I'm not going to be contacted at work anymore. I'm fine. Then maybe I'll bring in some THC and relax a little bit and enjoy my night because I'm also not that big of a drinker either.
No, neither am I. I would definitely say I'm a smoker more than I am a drinker.
But how is your everyday life? Because you get to actually, like, unlike me and Kevin, your day is a lot different. You get to actually smoke throughout the day.
True. And yeah, that's what I was saying. It's very similar but different how I go throughout my day. For me, I am someone who has ADHD. So when I smoke THC, it kind of mellows me down and lets me focus in. But not only that, it kind of enhances my creativity. So I produce some of my best content when I am stoned. And I'm not saying that if you have ADHD, you should go smoke THC. It's going to help. I do smoke a lot. That helps for me. I also take CBD as well. Sometimes I have this THC and MCT oil tincture I like because that one will really help my memory and my focus in. But usually I like to start the day around like 7, 8 in the morning. I usually take an hour to myself because I'm learning more and more that is so important. So I usually start out the day for myself. I try to do some stretches, drink a lot of water. And then I'll usually start out by like answering emails, replying to Instagram messages. I always want to be really present throughout Instagram. So I feel like I am constantly throughout Instagram the day, whether it's not like just engaging with people, posting media, stories. I'm someone who engages in my stories a lot and I like to keep them going so people can engage with me. It's fun. It does take a little mental toll on me. I'm learning. So, I've never worked at home before either. I'm totally freelancing right now. And that's a new experience for me, just like I'm sure it is a lot of people in COVID right now. Yeah. So it's finding routine. But then, I'll usually work on media throughout the day. I'll put content up. I'll be filming media, editing media. I spend a lot of my time on Canva and like Lightroom, that sort of thing. And then not only that, but like the cannabis business is growing. And as like an entrepreneur, freelancer in this area, there are so many new ideas that are always coming to light with me. And so, I feel like I'm constantly running through the time throughout the day, like, oh dang, the day's already over with. Like I still have this on my list, this on my list, this on my list. So it is hard,
And constantly you're just kind of puffing along.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And I'm just smoking throughout the day, especially, people smoke with me through my stories. I kind of wanted that to be like a smoke zone for people. Yeah. So I like smoking with them. They can smoke with me. Sometimes I do smoke CBD. A lot of it is THC though. I don't discriminate, but I think they both work in like great ways, especially for me and my personal mental health.
No, I think that's interesting, right? Because it's almost like I feel like people who are maybe against cannabis or like pay attention to the stigma a little bit more, that's what they think that we're doing all day. They think we're just kind of like smoking all day, not doing anything, sitting on the couch, like maybe doing some work. But on one end, it sounds like one of us is smoking all day, getting a lot of shit done. On the other end, a couple of others of us, you know, don't work like that.
Exactly.
We need CBD to kind of bring us down. But then at the end of the day, you can kind of turn it up a little bit with the THC or whatever, CBD, more CBD, whatever you want. But I think that's probably like another really big stigma is lazy stoner. You're doing it all day. You're not doing anything.
Exactly. I remember talking to this guy one time and I was explaining him how I was getting into cannabis and I was going to be doing this podcast. And he was like, well, that's cool. But like, what do you want to do with your life? I think I just told you. He's like, that's what you think you're going to do? That's what I'm going to do.
He's a hater. He's just being a hater.
Just people just don't understand yet. But like, as long as you stay confident in it and yourself and you know that it's making a difference for you at the end of the day, that's really what's so important. No, I would not give up marijuana if someone paid me. Like, it just helps out too much.
Don't listen to the haters, man. Dude, when I was working at the dispensary too, like obviously I can't expose people, but the clients that we would see, or the people coming in to buy cannabis, dude, high level people, man. You would never guess that your X or your Y or this dude, who has this company, whatever, this scientist that works in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You would never guess that these people, they're smoking weed, and a lot of them really do smoke weed all day. I remember one guy in particular. He worked in like material sciences or something like that. I mean, something beyond my mental capacity. He was like he was some gnarly dude who works on like materials, whatever. He was a chemist or something along those lines. And he was like, yeah, man, I just kind of like research and do my science thing all day. And he smokes weed all day.
Yeah.
And he's just a scientist rocking it
all day. He was a PhD. He was a PhD guy.
Wow. Love to hear it.
Like brilliant guy. Some of the coolest shit that I ever heard come out of anybody's mouth was from this guy. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to like.
No, yeah.
In the event that it makes its way back.
Yeah.
Like, and that guy was chiefing all day. So everybody's different.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's so true. My good friend, she takes 2 milligrams in edible and she's about lost her mind. I have to take well over 100 to even feel the effects.
Everyone's tolerance is so different, but I think that it's important to kind of like, who knows, maybe this guy had like raging anxiety and it helped him like calm down and get his work done. Like,
exactly. Or same with me, I had like attention deficit, just ADHD.
There you go. There it is. No, yeah,
It's
exactly.
hard.
Like these things are helping us. Like for instance, Kevin and me, like the CBD in the morning, that helps us, I'm sure the afternoon tokes or the afternoon THC consumptions for us also release or help us with our stress and anxiety from the day, and I don't know, like, how does smoking all day help you?
Well, I was reading earlier this article that was saying when you take your wake and bake, there's a reason why it's so strong, because when you're out in daylight, it enhances your CB1 and CB2 receptors because you're automatically getting that vitamin D, you're feeling happy, and that in relation to the cannabis, it only heightens it. So you're feeling this really intense high, usually in the morning or if you're out in the sunshine. So I really like that, and I feel like it really brings on a lot of creativity for me. Kind of lets me start the day and be like, I'm hyped. I like starting outside, going on a stony walk in the morning, just vibing to music. It's so nice.
No doubt.
So I guess for our listeners who may be going through some similar things, maybe it's not as easy for them to kind of, push the haters away, kind of not let them get to them. Like, what are some things that you guys, let's put ourselves in their shoes right now. Like, what are some things that you would say if somebody, I don't know, Kevin, like if somebody came up to you and were like, you smell like weed, you can't come into my business, and you were just working all day, like struggling, working your freaking butt off to make some money and help this cannabis industry, and you just kind of got treated like that. Like, how do we comment on these stigmas when we're kind of being judged by them?
I think you really have to look inside yourself and ask yourself, like, am I really doing this in a way that's beneficial to me? Am I a productive member of society? Am I a person that I'm happy with? Shouldn't matter what anybody else has to say about you, because you're confident in whatever you have going on within yourself. And, you know, whether it be cannabis or whatever it might be, if you're using it, it shouldn't matter. I mean, as far as what telling other people are going to believe what they want to believe. And I feel like it's pretty hard to change beliefs, especially like on a quick reaction type of interaction. But I think that's the biggest thing, just knowing that you are good with yourself, and everything else will just kind of follow.
Exactly. And I know it's really hard and those comments can eat at us, but I like to almost use them as fuel. You know, they fuel me at this point now.
Mm-hmm.
If someone said I couldn't come into a restaurant, I'd be like, okay, this is obviously not somewhere I want to be, because you know,
screw your food anyway.
Yeah, I'm like, right on. I'm going to keep on doing me, because those do get at me. You know, I'm very empathetic. And so I will linger on them, and, you know, I just can't. I've learned that I can't do it. I got to push on. I got to be confident in this industry.
No, yeah. I think also, just coming from my perspective, yes, I think that the best way to just get back at somebody is kind of, one, kill them with kindness, and two, be open to what they have to say. Like, oh, you don't like cannabis? Like, that's interesting. Like, why? Like, maybe let's have a conversation, and maybe I can give you some real life experience, or talk to you from my perspective and kind of make you understand, like, yeah, that's totally fine. You don't have to like cannabis. You don't have to consume it. But you also don't have to judge me, because look at all the stuff that I'm doing. And yeah, maybe I'd like to have a smoke before, you know, bed, instead of having a glass of wine. Like, the judgment shouldn't be there. It's always going to be there. But I think maybe just trying to talk to somebody and listen to their point of view, and try to kind of have like a cordial conversation about it. Like, it shouldn't be a war. There shouldn't be hate.
True. I mean, I probably won't have that conversation with the bouncer, but, you know, if I had someone there, I would, you know, because I'm trying to break the stigma. So it's taking those moments and those interactions with people to try to spread the good word of the cannabis.
The good word of the plant. I know we're getting up to our time, but I think just for the people, and I think I also am curious to know what you, Betty and Kevin, what your plan is to advocate for cannabis and CBD to kind of help break this stigma, because you guys are in the industry. You guys are open about consuming. Like, how are you guys going to advocate and kind of help stop this? I
think right now I'm going to continue what I'm doing. I definitely use my platform on social media to break the stigma already. My website's plastered with that already. Anytime I send a business proposal out, it's about breaking the stigma. Like, I just really want that to be a conscious thing for people, and be like, okay, this is a safe place. This is a communicate. It's okay. So just always talking about it and being open. I have so many great things to come for my page and Betty Blazed that I hope that will just help keep advocating for the use of cannabis.
Nice.
How about you, Kev?
Yeah, I'm just going to continue to do what I'm doing too. You know, this podcast has given me a platform. I've never been one to really share my beliefs. Like I said, I'm a pretty private person. Mm-hmm. But I mean, on a personal level, I'll always continue to praise cannabis and let everybody know how it's changed my life. Not only like for my career, but, you know, therapeutically as well. And, you know, share experiences that I've had, anecdotes that I could give people about different people that I've seen it help. I think, is my best way of doing it. Just continue to communicate honestly and openly with people, and let them know what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. And for you listeners, if you guys have somebody in your life, you know, who maybe is amplifying this stigma, like, feel free to talk to them, have an open conversation with them, send them this podcast, send them this episode, and maybe it'll help somebody look at cannabis a little bit different.
Especially if it is a loved one who has this negative stigma. I'm only assuming that's causing a little bit of conflict with your relationship. So I feel like the best thing to do is just communication in those times.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it's going to be a long road, but I think we're getting closer just by even these little things. Just talking about it is helping. And I just wanted to say thank you, Kevin, for letting me take over being host. This was so fun. But
it was fun. I liked it.
You did great.
I'm just really glad that you guys were able to share your story, because it's all like, you guys are the ones. Like, you guys are the people that I look up to in the cannabis industry. So thank you for letting me play host.
Oh my gosh, thank you for letting us answer these
guests.
questions. Yeah, to educate and spread the word.
And yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
No, yeah, thanks. This was cool. I think you did a great job. I had a lot of fun with this, and yeah, dude, thank you for. I want to let everybody know Danielle's the one who came up to me with this opportunity, and I want to let you know that I appreciate you giving me this opportunity and giving me a platform so that we can, really open up these conversations and hopefully spark some change.
So true. You messaging me was a very significant moment in Betty Blaze. I said, I know I'm on the right path right now.
Well, before I start crying, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you, Kevin, for letting me do this. Thank you, Betty, for letting me do this, and for you guys just being such great guests. And
thank you, Danielle.
Let's all fight the cannabis stigma together.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Thank you all so much for sticking with us till the end. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I hope that we were able to show you that we as cannabis consumers can break this stigma and show the world that we are still contributing members to society. All in all, if you're a cannabis consumer, keep on keeping on. Don't let the assumptions get you down, and don't be afraid to prove them wrong. Also, don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms at The Cannifornian, and listen to us on your favorite podcast platform.
The Cannifornian Podcast is brought to you by the Southern California News Group and Bay Area News Group. Our teams have come together to create the best content focusing on the cannabis and CBD industries and culture. We have developed various channels where we distribute content and offer cannabis and CBD advertising solutions. If you or your business would like to advertise with the Cannifornian, please contact us at info@thecannifornian.com. The views expressed by guests on this podcast are their own, and no endorsement is implied by their appearance. Views expressed by podcast employees are those of the employee and do not necessarily reflect the view of the Cannifornian, its parent company, or its affiliates.